I still remember the day I stumbled upon the hidden archives in the depths of the university's rare book room. It was as if I had been drawn to that specific shelf like a moth to a flame, despite my better judgment. The dusty tomes seemed to whisper secrets to one another, their leather bindings creaking with an otherworldly sigh. As I ran my fingers over the spines, a shiver danced down my spine, and I felt an inexplicable sense of trepidation. It was as if I had uncovered something that was meant to remain hidden, something that would change the course of my life forever. The shelf was tucked away in a corner, almost invisible behind a tattered velvet curtain. The books themselves seemed to be arranged in a deliberate pattern, as if they were trying to convey a message. I noticed that many of them had the same symbol etched into the cover, a stylized sigil that looked like a cross between a hieroglyph and a rune. I felt a sense of unease creeping over me, but my curiosity got the better of me. I carefully pulled out one of the books, blowing off the dust that had accumulated on its surface. As I opened it, a faint scent of incense wafted up, making my stomach turn. The pages were yellowed and crackling with age, filled with handwritten notes in a language I didn't recognize. But as I turned the page, something strange happened. The words began to shift and rearrange themselves, spelling out a single phrase in bold, red letters. Vehemence is the bridge between worlds. As I delved deeper into the book, I became increasingly obsessed with deciphering the cryptic message. The words seemed to dance before my eyes, taunting me with their meaninglessness. I spent hours poring over ancient texts and scouring the internet for any mention of vehemence or similar concepts. The more I read, the more I realized that this was no ordinary book. It was a key to unlocking a much larger puzzle. I began to notice strange occurrences around me. Doors would creak open on their own, and I'd catch glimpses of shadows darting around the edges of my vision. It was as if something was watching me, waiting for me to uncover the truth. The air in the room seemed to thicken, taking on a heavy, almost palpable quality that made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being led deeper into a trap, that every step I took was drawing me closer to some unknown horror. And yet I couldn't help myself. I had to know what vehemence was, and how it connected to the symbol etched into the book's cover. One night, as I pored over my notes, I stumbled upon a mention of Robert Sepehr, a mysterious figure who had supposedly mastered the art of Qabalah. According to legend, Sepehr had unlocked the secrets of the universe, but at a terrible cost. His followers whispered of unspeakable rituals and forbidden knowledge, of souls forever bound to the service of dark powers. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I read those words. Was it possible that I had stumbled upon something similar? Was Sepehr's legacy still active, waiting to be unleashed upon an unsuspecting world? The questions swirled in my mind like a maelstrom, refusing to let me find peace. And then, just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard it, the faint whisper of footsteps outside my room, echoing through the empty corridors like a death knell. I spent the next few days scouring the internet for any mention of Robert Sepehr. I devoured articles, interviews, and biographies, searching for a thread to lead me back to the truth. And then, one night, I stumbled upon an obscure forum dedicated to Qabalah and occultism. The threads were sparse, but one post in particular caught my eye, a cryptic message from a user named Ariel claiming to have known Sepehr personally. Ariel's words painted a picture of a troubled soul, haunted by demons both literal and metaphorical. He spoke of Sepehr's obsession with the Tree of Life, his fixation on unlocking the secrets of creation itself. But beneath the surface, I sensed a deeper unease, a fear that seemed to simmer just below the surface. As I read on, I began to feel a creeping sense of dread. It was as if I was being led down a rabbit hole from which there was no return. The more I learned about Sepehr's past, the more I realized that the line between reality and madness was perilously thin. I found myself lost in the labyrinthine corridors of Sepehr's mind, stumbling upon fragments of his thoughts and experiences like scattered puzzle pieces. It was a fragile thread to cling to, but it was all I had. And with each passing moment, the shadows seemed to grow longer, the air thickening with an unseen presence. It was then that I stumbled upon the infamous Roswell file, a 1970s-era police report detailing Sepehr's arrest for ritual murder and human sacrifice. The file was a blur of red tape and bureaucratic jargon, but one name kept popping up, a young woman named Emily Wilson. She had been Sepehr's girlfriend, or so the police claimed. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read those words. Something about Emily Wilson seemed off. The report was shrouded in mystery, and yet it was this one thread that bound everything together: Sepehr's dark past, his Qabalah obsession, and now a woman whose name seemed to haunt me like a ghost. The more I read, the more I realized that I had stumbled into something far larger than myself, something ancient and malevolent, waiting to be unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. I spent the next few days poring over every book and article I could find on Qabalah. It was as if I had stumbled upon a hidden language, one that spoke directly to my soul. The more I read, the more I realized that Sepehr's obsession with the Tree of Life was just a small part of a much larger puzzle. He had delved deep into the mysteries of the Kabbalistic system, unlocking secrets that few others could comprehend. But it was this connection that made my skin crawl, a sense of foreboding that seemed to grow with every passing moment. I began to notice strange symbols etched into the margins of my notes, as if someone was watching me from the shadows. The words themselves seemed to shift and rearrange themselves, spelling out cryptic messages in a language I couldn't quite decipher. It was as if I had stumbled upon an ancient code, one that held the key to unlocking Sepehr's darkest secrets. And then, one night, I received a package in the mail, a small, leather-bound book adorned with the same symbol etched into the cover of Sepehr's original text. The words inside were written in a language I didn't recognize, but as I touched the pages, I felt a surge of energy course through my veins. It was then that I realized I had been chosen to unlock the secrets of Qabalah, to wield the power of the Tree of Life itself. But at what cost? I knew that I had to decipher the code hidden within the leather-bound book. It was as if the words themselves were alive, waiting for me to unlock their secrets. I spent hours poring over the pages, using every trick in the book to unravel the mystery. And then, finally, it clicked, a phrase written in ancient Aramaic that seemed to hold the key to unlocking the entire text. As I translated the words, a shiver ran down my spine. They spoke of an ancient ritual, one that required human sacrifice and desecration of the very fabric of reality. I felt a cold sweat break out on my brow as I realized the true extent of Sepehr's obsession. He had been seeking to unlock not just the secrets of Qabalah, but to tap into a power that was beyond human comprehension. And now, with this text in hand, I felt like I was playing with fire. The words seemed to leap off the page, burning themselves into my mind like a branding iron. I knew that I had to be careful, that one misstep could have catastrophic consequences. But it was too late for caution. I had already unleashed the power of the ancient text, and now there was no turning back. The air in the room seemed to grow colder, as if the very presence of the ritual was drawing near. I felt a creeping sense of dread, like the darkness itself was closing in around me. As I delved deeper into the ritual, a presence began to stir around me. At first, it was just a faint feeling of unease, like the air itself was thickening with anticipation. But as the moments ticked by, the sensation grew stronger, until I could feel it pressing against my skin like a cold, clammy hand. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. This presence was no mere illusion. It was something real, something that had been awakened by my meddling with forces beyond my control. I could feel its eyes upon me, boring into my skin like hot coals. The words of the ritual seemed to take on a life of their own, echoing through the room in a maddening chant that left me breathless and shaken. And yet, despite the fear that was clawing at my heart, I knew I had to press on. I had to see this ritual through to its conclusion, no matter what horrors it might unleash upon the world. The presence seemed to sense my resolve, and it responded with a surge of energy that sent me stumbling backward. I felt like I was being pulled down into some dark abyss, with no safety net to catch me if I fell. And yet, even as I plummeted toward the unknown, I knew that I would not be deterred. The ritual had to be completed, no matter what the cost. I felt a creeping sense of dread as I continued with the ritual. The words seemed to be seeping into my mind, infecting me with an otherworldly energy that was both exhilarating and terrifying. I could feel the presence around me growing stronger, its influence spreading like a stain across the fabric of reality. The air was thick with an electric charge, making every hair on my body stand on end. I felt like I was losing myself in the ritual, becoming one with the ancient power that Sepehr had unleashed upon the world. The words of the Kabbalistic text seemed to be speaking directly to me, guiding me toward a revelation that would change everything I thought I knew about the universe and my place within it. And yet, despite the sense of awe and wonder that threatened to consume me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The ritual was taking on a life of its own, twisting and writhing like a living thing that refused to be contained. I felt like I was playing with fire, wielding a power that was beyond my control. And yet, I pressed on, driven by a morbid curiosity that threatened to destroy me. The presence around me seemed to sense my resolve, and it responded with a surge of energy that sent shivers down my spine. I knew then that I had crossed a threshold, that there was no turning back from the revelations that were about to be unleashed upon me. The words of the ritual seemed to fade away, replaced by an eerie silence that hung in the air like a challenge. And then in the stillness I heard a voice, a low, raspy whisper that spoke a single word: begin. I had always thought of my home as a sanctuary, a place where I could escape the stresses of the world and find solace in my own company. But now, that sense of security was gone. The ritual had unleashed a malevolent force upon the world, and it seemed to have taken up residence within my own four walls. Doors creaked open by themselves, and I would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, making me feel like I was living in a state of perpetual unease. I tried to convince myself that it was all just my imagination playing tricks on me, but deep down I knew better. Something was very wrong. One night, I woke up to the sound of my own voice whispering back to me from the darkness. It was a low, raspy tone, and it sent shivers down my spine. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy and unresponsive, as if some unseen force was holding me in place. The words seemed to come from all around me, echoing off the walls of my bedroom like a mantra. "You shouldn't have done that," they whispered. "Now you'll never be free." I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. The words grew louder, more insistent, until I felt like I was being consumed by them. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. The darkness seemed to recede, leaving me feeling gasping and disoriented. But the sense of unease remained, lingering like a shadow in the corners of my mind. I knew that I wasn't alone anymore, and that something was watching me from the shadows. As the days passed, I became increasingly withdrawn and isolated. The presence in my home seemed to be growing stronger, its influence seeping into every aspect of my life. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake so it could strike. My mind began to unravel, threads of sanity fraying at the edges as I struggled to keep up with the relentless barrage of visions and whispers. I would see things out of the corner of my eye, shadowy figures darting around the room, faces twisted in grotesque grins. The words of the Kabbalistic text echoed through my mind like a mantra, driving me deeper into madness with every passing moment. I became convinced that I was being herded towards some unknown fate, that the presence was manipulating me like a puppet on strings. My grip on reality began to slip, and I found myself wondering if I was still in control of my own actions. The air seemed to grow thick with an electric charge, making every breath feel like a battle against the void. And then, one night, I saw it, a vision that would change everything forever. A figure stood before me, its face twisted into a grotesque parody of humanity. It spoke in a voice that was both familiar and yet completely alien, saying, "You have been chosen." Chosen for what? I didn't know, but the answer seemed to be written across my mind like a burning brand. The presence closed in around me, its influence surging through my veins like liquid fire. I felt myself being pulled apart at the seams, my sanity splintering into a million fragments as the world around me dissolved into chaos. I stumbled through the darkened streets, my mind reeling from the visions and whispers that had consumed me for weeks. The presence was still there, lurking just out of sight like a specter, but I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I had to face the truth about what had happened, no matter how terrible it seemed. The words of the Kabbalistic text echoed through my mind, a constant reminder of the power and the danger that I had unleashed. I thought back to the day I first discovered Sepehr's book, the way it had seemed so innocent and harmless at first. But now, I saw it for what it was, a tool of darkness, a key to unlocking secrets that were better left unspoken. I knew then that I had made a terrible mistake, one that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The streets seemed to grow darker as I walked, the shadows deepening into abysses that seemed to swallow all light. I felt like I was walking through a nightmare, with no escape from the horrors that lurked around every corner. And then, suddenly, I saw it, Sepehr's house, looming before me like a monolith of despair. I knew that this was where my journey would end, where I would finally confront the dark truth about what had happened. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, the door creaking open beneath my hand like a mouth waiting to devour me whole. The darkness inside seemed to swallow me whole, but I stood tall, ready to face whatever horrors lay within. I stepped into the heart of darkness, the air thick with malevolent energy. Sepehr stood before me, his eyes blazing with an otherworldly power. The words of the Kabbalistic text seemed to ring out from his lips like a curse, as he spoke in a voice that was both ancient and eternal. "You have disturbed the balance," he hissed. "Now you must pay the price." I tried to speak, but my voice was frozen in my throat. The presence closed in around me, its influence surging through my veins like liquid fire. Sepehr raised his hand, and a bolt of energy shot toward me, striking me with the force of 1,000 suns. I felt myself being torn apart at the seams, my very soul ripped from its moorings. And yet, even as I was consumed by agony, I knew that I had to keep fighting. With a Herculean effort, I summoned every last shred of strength and launched myself forward, determined to confront Sepehr once more. The two of us clashed in a whirlwind of energy and fury, the outcome hanging precariously in the balance. And then, in an instant that seemed like eternity, it was over. Sepehr lay defeated at my feet, his power broken, his dark magic dissipating into nothingness. I stood panting, my heart pounding with exhaustion as I gazed out upon the ruins of the house. The presence had vanished, banished by my own strength and determination. And in that moment, I knew that I was free at last, free from the curse that had haunted me for so long. As I stood there, bathed in the faint light of dawn, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The battle was won, and I had emerged victorious. But as I gazed out upon the ruins of Sepehr's house, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The experience had changed me, leaving an indelible mark on my soul. I felt like a different person, one who had been tempered in the fire of adversity and emerged stronger and wiser for it. And yet, as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something that made my heart skip a beat. A small, leather-bound book lay open on the ground, its pages fluttering gently in the breeze. The words Qabalah were emblazoned across the cover, and I knew that this was Sepehr's journal. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should pick it up, but something about it drew me in, like a moth to flame. I reached down and picked it up, feeling a shiver run down my spine as I opened the book to the first page. The words within were written in a language I couldn't understand, but as I touched the page, they seemed to shift and rearrange themselves, revealing a message that was meant just for me. "The battle may be won," it read, "but the war is far from over." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that Sepehr's curse had not been broken after all. It had simply been hidden, waiting for me to uncover it once more. And with that realization, I knew that my journey was far from over.